Hey everyone, so I'm finally here to cover the February 2022 Humble Choice, unfortunately 2 weeks later than anticipated. There's been a lot going on, so ultimately this was unavoidable. Luckily, Borderlands 3 as a lead game means the bundle is fairly strong, so most people who are going to buy it will have bought it immediately. I've got one game to give away from this month, and I'll cover that when I get to it. First up, the lead game, Borderlands 3, and the second game, which is actually just DLC. Borderlands 3 and the Director's Cut DLC, which adds some side missions and a raid boss, weighs in a hefty 105 gigabytes, but it does seem to be very much a AAA game. It also looks nicer than previous games, though it doesn't lose the cel-shaded style. To compare, here is Borderlands 1 Game of the Year Edition, Borderlands 2, the pre-sequel, and Borderlands 3 side by side. What it does have is better fluidity. A problem I found in some of the games, particularly the pre-sequel, is that the mouse speed, frame rate, view angle, all of which can be changed, never quite felt right, so movement was always a little bit jarring to me. I managed eventually to find a configuration sweet spot for Borderlands 2, and 3 was fine out of the box. So, the plot of the franchise is typically the same across the board. You play one of 4 characters trying to kill people in the Badlands of Pandora and raid the Vault, which is like an Aladdin's cave full of an alien race's technological wonders and loot. In Borderlands 1, we learn the Vault only opens every 200 years, and in the second, they brute force the keys recharging to eliminate the daft plot points, and we learn that there are more vaults. I'm not going to spoil the plot of Borderlands 3 for the 5 people who haven't seen it before, but basically it's more of the same. I'm enjoying it, especially as the motion is less jarring and sickness-inducing than the last game, so I'm going to play it through. I may also go back and finish the second game. So far, I've only completed Borderlands 1.
Every other Crimson Raider stronghold, so this'll have to do for now.
Next up is Black Book. You play a girl who decides to take up witchcraft after the death of her fiancé so she can bring him back. She has to increase her power and unlock the 7 seals of the Black Book in order to achieve this.
7 seals of
The adventure side of the game is pretty good and based heavily on Russian folklore. The visuals are nice, but the combat is card-based. But it's not terrible. People already know I'm not a fan of card mechanics, but in this, it's pretty straightforward. As you make progress, your deck and power improve, so you're not always on the back foot. This is basically a simple, fun adventure game, but I'm still not a fan of the card battles.
It is so
Per Aspera, you play an AI tasked with terraforming Mars, ready for humans to mess it up. You get to build mines, then factories, and expand until the planet is ready for human habitation. There's a nice amount of narrative around the AI, Amy, and the initial tutorials give you plenty to work with to get up and running. I'm only a few mine types and factories in, but it feels pretty fun so far, so I'm going to play this more this month too. If you like sci-fi city or planet management games, this one is enjoyable. Just Die Already has the tagline Old People Mayhem Sandbox, and without seeing that on the loader I'd be even more confused as to what's going on. It looks like it could be fun, but the controls are a little bit annoying. Maybe it's meant to be multiplayer, but I have no idea what my objectives are other than getting out and causing grief. That said, mayhem for mayhem's sake is still a fun time, and there are a lot of crazy things in there to keep you entertained, from being blown up to losing limbs to naked showers. Fun, but I'm not overly interested in it. Before We Leave is a hexagonal city builder set in a post-apocalyptic world. After centuries underground escaping some kind of disaster, humanity re-emerges on the surface to rebuild their civilization and discover remnants left behind by their forebears. The first thing I noticed is that the tutorial is pretty fun and engaging, and fairly spoon-fed to start with, but you get an idea of what's going on, and it's easy to pick up how the various units and buildings function together. You start with collecting stone and logging, and you build yourself some accommodation and wells, and then you move on to recovering resources from ancient broken machines and researching new technology. The game itself is actually pretty relaxing too, so I'm looking forward to putting a few hours in to see what else it has to offer after the tutorial. As I have this elsewhere, Before We Leave is the game I'm giving away this month. To have a chance of winning, just subscribe and comment on this video that you want to win the game, and I'll enter you into the draw for next week. If you're on Twitter, retweet the video link that I post there, and you'll have a second chance to win there as well. Next up, a game entirely unrelated to Halifax's finest doom band, Paradise Lost. This game is essentially a walking simulator which reminds me a little of Lifeless Planet or Dear Esther. You play a young boy who discovers an underground bunker in a universe where the Nazis either won the Second World War or where they just stuck around for quite a while afterwards. As you explore various parts of the complex and discover items, more of the story is revealed. It starts out a bit creepy, but once you get the lights on, you stop expecting jump scares or zombies. I've read that this is about 3.5 hours long, so I'm going to play the whole thing. My only criticism is that it's a little bit linear and the walking speed is locked, so essentially the whole game is just moving forwards on rails, watching the beautiful environment work. Still, it's quite nice and I'm really enjoying the story. This is a pixel adventure RPG with some kind of dance dodge combat mechanic. It seems to be like a reverse Guitar Hero or Guitar Hero, if you will. Apparently many people compare it to Undertale, but to me Undertale felt totally different to this. It looks nice, but I didn't really enjoy the combat mechanic at all, so it's a no from me. Shame as the soundtrack is great. If you like these kind of mechanics in games, you'll love it. I imagine it's exceedingly popular among a great many people, and for good reason. Finally, we have Calico, a game where you move to a village to run a cat cafe. You explore the area, picking up new cats for the cafe and running errands for people. There's a lot of stuff to do, people to meet, and it's a pretty chilled game. As much as I love cats, I found myself a little bored, but I have friends who'll probably sink days into this without a second's thought because of how chilled it is. Not bad. So that's it for this month. We're now down to 12 games from 8, although they marketed it as 9. But given how good Borderlands 3 is, I find it hard to complain too much given the price I paid to buy everything. I'm going to be playing that per Aspera Before We Leave and Paradise Lost, so a good 50% of the games here are things that I'll actually enjoy. But let me know what you think in the comments. As ever, if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. I'm also on Twitch occasionally and Twitter. If you want to win Before We Leave, subscribe, comment on the video, and if that's not your thing, retweet the link from Twitter. I'll add all the comments and retweets up and pick a winner in a week's time. Stay safe and see you for the next video.